Hi, welcome to my lesson that aligns itself with a novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray, that my students have to read. And the basic objectives of the lesson are that they're going to have to understand Victorian literature, particularly themes and symbols, which is the actual focal point, but how those themes and symbols reflect the characteristics of Victorian literature and the text in particular, the socioeconomics and the culture of the Victorian era and how they align themselves with the themes and symbols, and how it relates really to modern American socioeconomics and politics and why those things are important. And the culminating assessment, the formative assessment, is to write an analytical essay. There are several assessments, formative, although they seem like a lot. My students need that because they have to have accountability. They have to feel like whatever they're doing is valued in order for them to participate. And so we do use a lot of rubrics in this assignment. The biggest part of this lesson is the technology. This is a lesson I've taught for years. It was very much teacher directed, and with the modifications and the technology integrated, I have now taken on the role of facilitator, and it is extremely student-led. Collaboration is key. Nearly everything they do is collaborative. To begin with, I built the lesson in a Weebly site in a WebQuest, as is required by most other web quests. There's an introduction. I let the students know what they have to look forward to. There are tasks, which is a more detailed list. You will have to do this. You will have to do this. Read articles, navigate the web, things like that. The most important part of this web quest is the process and evaluation page. The students have a guided reading that they will have to fill in after they visit this link and after they read these notes. They will have a graphic organizer that they will have to use in order to better understand themes and symbols and find them in the text, so that they can prepare for the final essay. And then, of course, embedded in the Weebly technology, I've embedded Microsoft Forms to use as an anticipation guide. And this, too, focuses heavily on the theme, and that students have to agree or disagree with comments that focus around the theme of the text. There is the blogging rubric, the Coggle rubric. Coggle was the other collaborative thing that I did. Students had to choose a theme, choose a symbol, choose textual evidence, and then choose an image. And they had a branch. The student, for instance, chose the theater, and here's his quote. Then he chose the theme. He actually used both of his quotes. He only had to choose one. Theme, beauty is only skin deep. And here are his textual evidence for that. And then you have the image. And all of these things, what they're supposed to do is you're not only doing your own. This is live interaction. And so students, while they're working, they see other students working, and they're like, oh, that's a great example. And so they're talking about it, and you can see it, them interacting with each other. And I get to put it on my projector and look at my laptop and interact with them. I'm reading it from the big screen, and I can see everything they're doing, and they are so excited about it. And so what you see here is we use the first two initials of their first and last name to protect their privacy. The WebQuest forms also supply the students with their rubric for their literary analysis and the peer review for their rubric. Some of these things are post-reading, some of them are pre-reading, but they're all part of the same lesson in that they revolve around themes and symbols of the Victorian era, particularly where they relate to the Picture of Dorian Gray. Another collaborative and interactive thing we use is blogging, and there's a rubric for that as well. And then finally, I use Microsoft Forms again in the conclusion, where I ask students to give me feedback about the lesson and how I can improve it. It is fairly new with regard to the technology being integrated, and so it's important for me that I receive feedback from them. As far as differentiation goes, the entire lesson is designed for the purpose of differentiating. Students work at their own pace. They can work together directly or more directly. Students who have IEPs, or just simply if they request it, can get a pamphlet of the handouts so that, or a booklet of the handouts, excuse me, so that they have something in their hand. They can highlight, they can write on, jot things down. Sometimes they need that physical paper, and so that will be offered to them. In addition, there's an enrichment activity. There's a PBS documentary called Park Avenue, Money, Power, and the American Dream, and the kids watch that, take a quiz, and then they have to write a one-page journal explaining how the Victorian era and the things they've read in the text are very similar to modern America and what's happening now with the top 1%. And so those are different ways. We don't really need assistive technologies. If you're going to use the enrichment activity and watch the documentary, you'd need headphones, but that would be the extent of it. My biggest recommendation is not to do or use so much or try to do so much if you don't have regular access to tablets or computers. In addition, my other recommendation would be, if you're not using collaborative tools, things that are interactive and live, do so. The best part of this lesson wasn't even the Weebly, which is what I put the most work into as a teacher. It was the Kaggle. I had a student actually come to me and tell me that he really loved the lesson, and he wouldn't have done it if it weren't using Kaggle. He said it excited him, and because of it, he really wanted to read the book so that he could interact with his peers. And so those would be my two biggest recommendations. Thank you for patiently viewing my presentation.